that's good. Okay. Okay, what's Drink and Draw?
Drink and Draw is the coolest and most awesomest artist collective you will find in Berlin.
And who's part of Drink and Draw?
Julian, Helen, Bayar, Hannah, Kevin, and me, Eileen.
What do you guys do?
We do workshops, we organize parties, we do installations, we do weekly live drawing sessions and all kinds of artsy stuff.
What's that weird sound that I'm hearing?
That's probably our boat bumping into boats next to us.
You guys are on a boat?
We are on a boat and it's called Helene. It's a 90-year-old freight boat and it's in the middle of Berlin, so you should totally check it out when you're in the area.
Cool, I will. What do I need to bring?
Well, you can bring whatever you want. Bring your mom, bring your friends, bring your dog. But you can bring drawing materials or you can just use what we have around here.
Awesome, sounds great.
Cool. All right, well, welcome you guys to our Drink and Draw stream for Wacom, Creative Chaos. Yeah, this is Lars Weiler. I'm Eileen Tretter. I'm gonna do the interview part. We have Kika right back here drawing for us for the first 15 minutes. And yeah, as you can see, we are on our home boat right now. So this is, we are in Berlin. And this is where we host weekly drawing sessions. Today, Tsuki is going to be our fantastic model. He's going to strike some awesome poses in various costumes, actually. And you guys on your PC are totally invited to draw along if you want to. Just grab some materials, whatever you feel comfortable with, and do some awesome stuff, basically. Lars and I, the person that's gonna get interviewed, and I were gonna throw in like a random prompt at the beginning of each pose, and the drawer can, you as the drawer and our drawer back here, can totally put that into the drawing as well, if you want to. It's just like another inspiration. So what do you suggest for Tsuki's pose right now? What comes to mind?
What comes to mind? Shoot.
I think it looks really high fashion.
It does.
So maybe like a fashion show vibe, I don't know.
Like a catwalk?
Like a catwalk or fashion theme. I don't know. I really like the pose. It's just really striking. Okay, awesome. So that would be the first prompt if you want to include that into your drawing. High fashion catwalk, something like that. And yeah, we're gonna just do basically about 2 hours of like interviews and podcasty style, living room style, getting to know the artists behind Drink and Draw, basically. We have a ton of cool guests that are gonna draw with us and for us and talk with us. And yeah, the person that is drawing right now is gonna be the next one on the interview chair, if that makes sense. So you can already check out Kika's drawing and then you're gonna get to know her later in the interview, basically, or in the like podcast. And Lars is gonna be the show opener for the interviews, and he's gonna close basically the session by drawing the last pose of the evening. And yeah, I think that's it. We can just get comfortable, grab a drink.
I'm already comfortable. I'm comfortable.
Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I mean, yeah, cool. So Lars, he's an illustrator. He moved to Berlin like, what, a year ago?
Almost exactly a year ago, yeah.
Awesome.
Well, 11 months precisely.
And since you've moved to Berlin, you're basically like a very important part of our crew as well, because he teaches, or you teach, a lot of life drawing courses, actually.
Yeah.
So how did you get into teaching?
Oh dear. By necessity almost. My old school, they misscheduled a course and left the first semester kind of without a teacher. So I started prepping some stuff and didn't want to leave them hanging and kind of evolved from there.
Nice. So you just did that and the teacher, like the school didn't even ask you to do it, or did they want you to do it?
We're just kind of left hanging, but...
Dang.
Yeah.
So you just kind of stepped into the spot, kind of.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
did what was necessary.
I could have done without a teacher, but I felt like most of the life drawing was very passionate about that, and I felt like if there's no one explaining it, because it's always this like weird contact issue with life drawing, like oh, there's a naked person on stage. You need someone to actually explain like how to approach this and like certain techniques to maybe even avoid. And yeah, I figured if they had that, then they probably would be more engaged with the entire idea of doing life drawing.
Cool. So it's basically like you were really passionate about it, and then the spot was open and you kind of stepped in and it all started from there, basically. Yeah. And then what happened afterwards? I mean, we actually went to the same school, so I kind of know the story already. But at some point they just asked you to be like an official teacher, right?
They asked me to be an official teacher, though not for life drawing, but for perspective. Because we already had a very competent life drawing teacher, but jokes on them, perspective and life drawing have a lot in common, so we could actually do like some life drawing lessons within perspective, so
cool.
That happened.
I mean, the forms and the cylinders
exactly,
are always like same thing, basically. Cool. What would you say is like, for you, the main difference between teaching and studying for yourself?
Well, with studying for yourself, you're very, obviously self-orientated, because you can just focus on, okay, what do I need to know? When it comes to teaching, my approach is that I kind of want to be able to know everything so I can answer everything.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's a good thing in a teacher. And even if you don't know everything, just being able to say, okay, I don't know this, but give me a week and I can figure it out for myself. So you don't just teach dogmatically, but you actually, teach from a point of understanding and, like a mutual understanding of, okay, art is difficult, and even if there's something that you don't know, you can figure it out because the tools to learn are like out there.
For sure. I mean, especially in our times with like the internet, YouTube, everything, you can basically, you can Google it for yourself, but it's also really, really helpful if a teacher kind of breaks it down and like gets what you individually basically need right now.
Definitely.
Right?
That's the cool thing about a teacher. They can actually look at what you're doing and say, okay, you're lacking in this and this and that. And then they can point you towards the proper resources, because if that's not there, the internet is huge, as it turns out. So actually trying to find the things that are suited for your particular situation, it's really hard. So I think that's like the thing of a modern teacher. Aside from teaching an approach, you can also be the guy to actually become like a nexus of resources and then relay that.
Cool. Oh, okay. So it's more about like not knowing everything yourself, but knowing where to get it, and also kind of pointing the student into the right direction where they can get additional information. Yeah, basically.
And also I think staggering the amount of information that they actually get. Because there's I did it yesterday. Like, okay, there are these 4 books that you could totally read on this topic, and then nobody's going to read 4 books on one topic. So, but you can start with this one in that chapter, and then the rest, if you're interested, do that. But yeah.
So yeah, okay, that makes total sense. So you also teach workshops here at our boat, like I don't know, a couple times a year. And I was wondering, how do you manage with like different backgrounds of your students? Because some of our people are just like beginners, they just want to learn all the basics, kind of just know where to start. And some of them are literal professional artists working in the industry and just striving for like skill perfection. How do you do that in like a 2 or 6 hour workshop?
It's hard. It's I think the most difficult aspect about teaching in general, because I've taught workshops where you have like all backgrounds, but it's kind of the same thing when you teach a class at school, where you think, okay, first semester everybody is at a similar skill level. They're not. There's different kinds of understanding, different kinds of ability to pick up things. So you're always trying to get like a grip on how they're thinking. At least in drawing, you can get a really good idea as to like where they're struggling, because it's so direct, it's like line and everything. So you know, okay, if the line is not confident, then you can tell, okay, they need to actually just draw more. And if the perspective is off, then they just need to take it a step slower. Usually just draw the horizon line. Trust me, you'll need it later.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. But actually trying to figure out like the biggest point of anxiety is when someone is really like very, very, very decent to the point that you cannot actually tell where they're struggling.
Okay.
They're not amazing, but they're super decent. So you know you're supposed to say something to help them somewhere, but proportions look like almost perfect. Anatomy looks almost perfect. Perspective looks almost perfect. And you can just say, just draw more, which is, I don't like that advice, because drawing more, you can just practice the wrong things, right? So you want to tell them something to actually get a grip on one topic in particular. Otherwise, why am I even there? Like, they know they need to draw more. Everybody knows that. So how can I be helpful? And that's the point where I struggle most. Like, otherwise, just all the things I mentioned, just, focus on that one, because I think you get the most out of that. Like, there's always this point of, I like to call it collateral learning, where you study one thing, and some other parts of drawing are intrinsically linked to it, like with perspective and
snowball into the other parts.
So, for example, I want someone to get more into perspective, and they're really not interested in perspective, which is understandable. It's a tough topic. But if you teach them like anatomy and the approach to break down anatomy into forms, then suddenly they're dealing already with cubes and spheres and that kind of stuff, and then you can just nudge them. So if you just link those to a horizon line and just imagine this muscle you use as a that you drew as a box, like with a Bridgman book, for example, like when we follow Bridgman's principles, you just imagine that as a room, and suddenly, that's perspective. So you can just kind of Trojan horse the entire thing.
Yeah, you like slightly, really, really slowly move over. Okay, that's actually it for this pose. I will have just one last...
We have 5 more minutes.
Oh, 5 more minutes. Oh, sorry. Never mind. I mistook the side. Oopsie. Okay, that's perfect. 5 more minutes, because I have one question that's hopefully really useful for our viewers, which would be, so if you're like a total beginner but you really want to get into drawing, what would you recommend? I mean, there are so many recommendations one could give, but your personal, maybe what you did to get into drawing, I don't know, some
Oh, you don't want to follow my way of trying to draw. It involves a lot of really bad how to draw anime books, so let's cut that out.
Everyone starts somewhere.
Yeah, they do. But there are good books on that topic, but mine were atrocious. I'm not gonna mention them, but they were oh boy.
I mean, I had a couple. I really liked them.
We need to compare notes at some point, because I think we might have had the same book.
Oh man,
would be cool. So where do you start? I think start with what interests you. I think that's the most important part, because in art, usually people say you're so talented, and no, it's usually just persistence. But persistence needs to come from a point of interest, I think, or desire to earn money with this skill, I guess. But interest, I think, is the most important bit. So say if you really like perspective, then there's Scott Robertson's books, which I think give a really good in-depth look at how to do it, and also combining studies with practical applications. So you don't just, because that was my mistake too, you just hone in on this one book and you study that, but you never really apply it. So that's the other thing. So if you like perspective, look at one book that's very technical, but also then try to apply what you read there. When you just sketch environments, when you sit down within a town and you just draw buildings, try to apply what you just did. Same with anatomy. So you have an anatomy book like Michael Hampton's book or Andrew Loomis's book, which is a classic. And then you try to actually apply that in life drawing, and don't just try to apply to this weird mannequin whose proportions are really off, and you shouldn't study only that thing, because I've seen that happen too.
So basically, if you learn something technical about drawing, as soon as you can, try to put it into practice in your own way, basically.
Yeah.
So, that makes sense.
Because the added benefit there is that if you do this regularly, and you just keep doing this cycle of I study something up, and I try to actually work it into what I'm interested in, you see constant progress, which I think beginners need to. Everybody needs that, but beginners especially, because drawing is this really broad, amazing topic. And not seeing, you can just practice every single bit of drawing, everything from perspective over design towards drawing,
colors,
drawing from
values, everything, composition.
Yeah, you can study every single part of that, clockwise, and you will never get any further, because your progress is so incremental that, you will never get anywhere, it feels like. But if you just, hone in on one thing, then you actually see, increases in understanding and skill over a very short period of time, and then that's what actually helps me, and then you can keep doing that, and it's very rewarding and fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the thing with taking 100 steps in 100 directions, or taking 100 steps in one direction.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Pretty much, but also you get this collateral aspect too. So
Okay, so
while it's
yeah.
so everything that's kind of adjacent to this topic becomes a bit more traversable.
Right.
So then you can just kind of widen that gap. Well, not widen the gap, but widen the understanding there.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, that makes sense. So yeah. Awesome. How much time do we have? 1 minute. One last minute. All right, Kika. It's on. Yeah, so cool. So what do you prefer actually? Do you prefer live drawing without costume or with a costume model? Can you say that, or does it vary?
I prefer live drawing without a costume. Usually because I tend to just walk into this direction without ever looking back and see where I should probably track back. So there's so much to explore with just anatomy and just a person. Also, every person is different. So I feel like every time a new model steps up, I need to start from the beginning to try and actually understand how they work.
Sure.
So I just like doing that. It just never gets boring for me.
Yeah, and I mean you can, in an afterthought, still kind of dress the person, right?
Yeah.
From imagination or from reference.
Definitely, yeah.
Cool. So good. So I think that's it this time for real. Thank you for this post, Tsuki.